I grow vegetables in sunken beds because I have sandy soil. But this year I experimented with a few raised beds. So today I will tell you why I chose to make raised beds and also show you an easy and less expensive method of making them. Behind every garden design, there is a context. I live in hyper-urban city of Gurgaon. Don't go by the setting of this video. I am right now in Himachal, but my garden is in Gurgaon and my soil is quite sandy. Sand doesn't hold water, so sunken beds make sense because they tend to hold water longer. But in the last 3 years, because I've been consciously adding a lot of organic matter in the soil, the quality of the soil has drastically improved and it's beginning to retain good amount of water. So I decided to experiment with a few raised beds to see if it makes difference to the final produce. Also, raised beds are much easier on your back when you're gardening every day. So that's my context of attempting this trial. Now, how do you go about making garden beds? Whichever kind you're going for, the first thing you need to do or you need to have is a garden layout that clearly marks the vegetable beds and the pathways. I prefer doing this on a paper and then drawing it in the garden itself. You can mark garden beds with lime powder or chuna if you have a very large land. But if you have a small garden like I do, then drawing it out with a stick is an easy task. Although I have consciously added organic matter in the soil for last 3 years that I keep repeatedly saying, the soil still gets compacted by the end of the growing cycle or one season. So the next thing I need to do is decompact the soil with minimum disturbance to the soil structure. I use a garden fork for this purpose, wherein I push the garden fork into the soil using the weight of my leg and push the fork outwards and upwards at an angle. This breaks up the soil around the fork, at which point I draw the fork out. This method does not toss the soil structure upside down, meaning the topsoil that carries maximum available nutrition for the plants does not get disturbed too much, and I am able to create channels for soil to absorb nutrients and also decompact. If I use the conventional method of tilling using a khurpi or a fawra, the organic matter, the soil organisms and all the fungal networks will be disrupted badly, taking me back to year 1, and I don't want to do that. I have a separate video detailing this decompaction method. You will find the link in the description. Once I decompact the soil, it gets visibly fluffy, and now I layer it with a thick layer of compost. Last year I had access to cow dung and home compost, so I used that. This year I'm experimenting with this vermicompost. This compost zone will provide most available nutrients to the plants, and it will also work as a catalyst for their growth. I top this layer of compost with thick mulch. Mulch protects the lower layers from direct sunlight, it holds moisture, and it also moderates temperature fluctuation of day and night for the plants. In a few months, this mulch will decompose and become part of the topsoil, adding organic matter and simultaneously building soil. And that's it, the bed is ready to plant. Pathways are your access to the garden beds, and they get compacted the most because we walk on them. You must have seen how constant walking leaves trails on the ground and nothing really grows there. While I don't want to grow anything on the pathways, I try to reduce the extent of compaction by covering them with what I have easily available at home. This year I used egg crates at the base, and then I covered them with straw and grass cuttings. This arrangement will trap runoff water from the beds, add organic matter, and prevent intense soil compaction even though we walk on it. Once your beds and pathways are ready, start planting. It is crucial you do it in the same day or at least in that week, so that the plants get nutrients immediately from the compost you've put in, and the roots can grow and bind the soil and keep it from eroding. Now, of course, the saplings will take time to grow and bind the soil. So in the interim, you can provide support to the raised bed by placing temporary structures. I used bamboo poles. You can of course line the bed with bricks or make proper bamboo structures around it. For me, bamboo structures are not feasible as they decay very quickly, they are not grown locally, and thus these become a recurring cost and a maintenance chore for me. Using bricks is expensive, but more importantly, they take up a lot of land space and become a breeding ground for slugs and snails who will eventually feast on what I grow. You can choose to increase the height of the beds further depending on your soil structure and sometimes aesthetics. The height of my beds is just 4 to 6 inches, and that's again because my soil is largely sandy and won't hold the taller structure unlike clay soils. Second, raising it any further does not carry any advantages for me. In summers, a taller bed with largely sandy soil will lose water more quickly and increase the watering requirement. Plus, raising it further also means adding tons of more soil. I would rather let it grow organically and increase the height as the soil becomes denser with years. So, this to me is the simplest way of making a bed in an urban area with limited resources. All you need are tools, vermicompost, and straw or dry leaves. While tools and vermicompost can be purchased, straw can be taken for farmers for free, or you can rake up dry leaves from public parks. I have done that myself. If you feel like adding additional fertilizers to these beds, feel free to do so as the plants grow. So, this was the step by step breakdown of how I created my raised beds this year. But this is just one half of the story. A lot of thought and planning goes into creating beds that suit your needs, and that's what I will detail out in my next video. Please like and share my videos and help spread the word. I will see you soon. Bye.